Spanish Grand Prix. I think is it the last at Catalonia, which is a shame, I think. But yeah, let's see what happens in free practice 3, starting in 2 minutes. The McLarens are going to come back here. Welcome, Matthews. Good to see you. About to get underway. 1 hour at Catalonia. Air temp 31, track temp 47. Now that I can believe. I can believe that. In fact, that track temp's going to probably go up by 50 degrees. So that is going to be quite difficult for the drivers. See if I can get some. Oh, we had the videos last time. Let me see if I can get them. Let me see.
Focus on the right head.
Barcelona. Sure. Ah, I do have one. Okay. There we go. That is Barcelona. Welcome, Chaya. Wemby Watchalong got a barbecue birthday. Very nice. It's going to be hot over here, I think. It's going to be hot over here. Hope you enjoy that. So Bottas and Perez in the Cadillacs out early. What are the trophies behind me? Those are my racing trophies. Welcome, Spaceman. So, hang on a second, it's just the Cadillacs at the moment going out. What's going on here? Anyone else want to join that party? I think it's a good track, Catalonia. Even you see that bit now in the footage here. That is after turn 4. Just that little rundown to open up turn 3, which is a great corner. Very difficult. What a joke about Monaco speeding. Oh my goodness. Well, we did talk about it a lot last week, didn't we? I just wonder if the smart move, if you're certain your car wasn't speeding, and I mean, for George Russell, in hindsight, George Russell should have just not taken the penalties. Should have not taken the 5 seconds or drive-through or whatever. But then do you get black flagged? Then are you kind of bringing the sport into disrepute? It's very embarrassing for Formula 1, because Formula 1 is meant to be this pinnacle of technology. They can't even measure speed correctly. Dutch live blogs when Anthony tuning in the pits. Yeah, Anthony's got a smaller ice pack vest in the pits. So not the massive one. And it's still just the Cadillacs going around. So there's no mad rush here from the other teams. By the way, if Kimi wins this weekend, he'll have more career victories than Russell. So George Russell will officially become a number 2 driver, which is quite interesting. So Gasly seemed to be successful in the appeal. Yeah, but so the appeal had to be submitted within 96 hours of the Grand Prix. Alpine did it. I thought what would happen is Alpine would submit the appeal. Formula 1 will go like, actually you're right, but this would be super embarrassing. Just you know, withdraw the appeal and, you know, we'll cut you some slack next time on something. We'll owe you one. And I thought that's how it would have ended. And that probably would have been maybe more beneficial for Alpine in the long run. But I think Gasly really wants that P3. I think, imagine you're Gasly and you get the data that shows that you were not speeding. You don't want to be the fall guy for that. Yeah, sometimes it's like, it's interesting. We were able to spot here something's not right. As soon as the second one appeared, it was like, this isn't right. Tell all your drivers to slow down massively. And by the way, to be fair, I still think most of the drivers, if their engineers had communicated properly, wouldn't have got penalties, because you just need to lift a little bit at some point. Unless you're absolutely critical on exit, it's not really how Monaco works, because Monaco is all about track position. So if you're not critical on exit, it doesn't really matter like whether you come out a second or so later. And the risk was so high. You know, the fact Piastri got a penalty, I think, is a massive failure by his engineering team. Yeah, quali is today. Quali is coming up. So I just think it was embarrassing by a lot of people involved. It was embarrassing by Formula 1. It's embarrassing by the teams. It's probably embarrassing by some of the drivers who, when they're told, okay, there's been two, you know, I'd take a decision in the cockpit to go like, well, I'm definitely not going to get a penalty. And you look at Kimi and Bono, and they didn't get a penalty. Didn't Hamilton even get a penalty? Yeah, he did. He took it in. He stacked it. A stop and go pit stop for Perez, I think. Maybe there's something in the car. In fact, both Cadillacs doing a little stop and go in the pit lane. But let me know your thoughts on what happened there, what transpired. And I don't think F1 will want people talking about it either. Because it's just, again, super embarrassing for F1. Mackie, what's the whole deal about Mercedes not to upgrade engine? Well, turns out that actually Red Bull have the strongest engine. Well, Red Bull have the strongest combustion part of the engine. Mercedes don't, but they have a really strong electrical part of the engine. But what it means is that Mercedes can upgrade their combustion part. Quali is in a while. Quali is in a couple of hours. Welcome, BCRE Sports. Yeah, if it's hot at Catalonia, again, it's approaching 50 degrees track temp. Degradation can be massive. Which is why I quite like Catalonia on the challenge on the calendar, because there's not as many challenges like it. Yeah, we'll be back for qualifying as well. But again, just the Cadillacs out, and I wonder if that's indicative of teams really wanting to look after how many sets of tyres they have. I mean, let's say you knew the race was going to be a 3-stop on Sunday, for example. Or let's say that it's a 2-stop, but a safety car would turn it into a 3-stop. So that means that you're using 4 sets of tyres. So maybe you're like, well, actually, it's not worth us going out and through practice 3 at all. Quali's at the same time as the start of Le Mans. It's funny, like, I should be really feeling Le Mans, like, especially with like a new Genesis there. I honestly think with Porsche, with the 963 not there, I think that takes a lot out of it for me. But even though I went to Le Mans last year, it's not something this weekend I've thought, oh, I'm going to build my whole weekend around 24 hours of Le Mans. It's an American Express advert, like, look at us, we do Wimbledon and Formula 1 and concerts. It's also like, when I've been to these places and I see the American Express area, it's always some, like, chauffeured in and out, bordering on, like, appropriation of the experience. You remember when Michael Schumacher won with a 4-stop? That's what I'm saying. Then it is going to be a bit of a tyre lottery. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Le Mans. The more hypercars in there, the more exciting it tends to be. Surely 499p is just gonna, one of them's gonna take it. Although the Cadillacs was between I mean, I don't know what's going on with BAP, but I don't understand how the BMW is so strong this year. BMW is crazy strong. Ah, Hulkenberg's gone out on circuit. Okay. Welcome, Nico Hulkenberg. Two cars on circuit. 10 minutes into free practice 3. What's going on here? What's happening? I wonder if it is going to be tyre related. I mean, the other drivers they do have helmets on and stuff, but maybe they're not going to use as many tyres in this session, so they're running a shorter session. I think at Catalonia you get day tickets, so it's not like anyone's going to be just have a ticket of FP3 and not see anything. I think. It's interesting because this disadvantages the weaker teams more, because the weaker teams need to do more running. But by doing more running, they're going to run out of tyres and they're going to do even worse in the race. Whereas the stronger teams don't need to do the running and they keep the tyres and they'll be even stronger in the race. So if you're Cadillac here, you're the gap between you and the actual midfield is getting further away. Tyres only really good for 1 lap, like chewing gum. 32 degrees air temp. And now it's just Nico Hulkenberg on circuit. Almost 15 minutes into the session. What's going on? What's happening? I mean, the grandstands are absolutely packed. And there's like no... I mean, if Hulkenberg comes in, there'll be no cars on circuit and it'll be very embarrassing. If I'm Formula 1, I'm actually going up and down the garages or making some calls and get one of your cars out there. I imagine it'll be hotter in qualifying. So Bottas was on soft tyres. Because also you don't want to burn tyres up for quali as well. It's going to be so hot in quali. And your soft tyres are... You're going to be absolutely rattling through soft tyres. What a weird season for Formula 1, isn't it? I mean, I would say that this is not... I don't mind having... From my selfish perspective, I don't mind having no cars out in FP3 if it means that the race is going to be exciting, and if the deg is going to be that high, then I'll take that.
Okay, crack on.
Rather than everyone being on like rock hard tyres. I mean, drivers are sat in cars. Is Hulkenberg going to go around again? No, Hulkenberg boxes, so 15 minutes into the session there's going to be no cars on circuit. And then Kimi's out of the car, so you have to ask the question like, is it sport, is it entertainment? If it's a pure sport, I mean from a pure... This is great from a pure sporting perspective. For anyone who thinks F1's become all about entertainment, this is actually great for like sport purists. Having no cars on track is fantastic. Because it means that they're not just going around just as big advertising billboards. And I haven't paid for a ticket to be there. Where's my ticket? Everything's tidy. I used to have my ticket. That I think was like €400. But that was a 3-day ticket. Which I actually think is, these days, probably really good value. Well, what do we make of this in the chat? No cars on track. See, I could just... That's me, literally, that's me right now. There's no one there, so I thought I'd just have a sit down. With that said, if I'm a sponsor right now, if I'm sponsoring the Williams team, let's say I'm Golf or something, I'm on the phone to James Vowell saying, "What? Can you remind me what I'm paying for? Thank you very much." I can get my car out there in front of people watching. No cars, no opportunity to enjoy the atmosphere, track your neighbours. Yeah, this is what we said last week about the motorbikes. In the motorbikes, firstly, this never happens in the motorbikes, I think. They're always out there. Secondly, in the motorbikes, I find the crowd is much more communal. And I've been to see the motorbikes at Barcelona quite a few times. And I've seen the Formula 1 at Barcelona, so I do know what I'm talking about. It's more like communal, it's more like... you know, often tickets are cheaper, they used to be anyway. Whereas Formula 1, I feel like people go, you got to wear your you got to wear your replica kit and like all this stuff, and I don't know how to put it. I feel like at Formula 1 there's more of a sense, there's often people there who they don't really know what they're looking for, but looking at track, like, whereas in MotoGP, the fans are just like, it doesn't really matter what's happening on track. They're going to have a good time. They're chatting. They're talking about everything. I don't know what that is. That might be because Formula 1 is, when I go to European races, there's often like quite a heavy British contingent and like it's a bit more formal. I don't know. How are the Ferrari updates looking? Well, we'll have to see when they get on track. I would have thought the drivers who missed FP1 would get out there and get as many laps as possible. Yeah, I wonder if there's a bit of attention there, like if there's a driver whose sponsors paid for them to get an FP1 rookie session, but the team wants to conserve as many tyres as possible. Maybe this is the result. Right, Williams come out, Haas has come out. A lot of drivers on the soft tyres, by the way. I have a feeling those mediums and hards are going to be absolute premiums. If you could sell them between teams, that's an interesting idea. What if they're like carbon credits and like lower down teams could sell fresh sets of tyres during the race? But let's say it was like a live auction during the race. So the race starts and along the side there's an auction and like teams can put stuff up there any time, and then Williams are like, right, 2 minute auction starting now for 4 hard tyres from us, and like Mercedes bid like £20 million or something, but then they get outbid at the last moment. It's like eBay, they get bid at the last moment by McLaren, 20.00001. Mackie, first F1 race ever this year at Vegas. Heard Circuit America is amazing too. You mean you're going to your first race? That's pretty cool. Let us know where you're sitting. We have done the track walk at Vegas, which is actually one of the better track walks to do, weirdly. Given that a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is a strip. And then you come off the strip and you go past Top Golf and there's all the F1 stuff, which is pretty fun. Then there's a bit down Koval, I think, which is not that exciting. But then you go around the Sphere and the Expo, and then you're back on the strip at Treasure Island. Hopefully back in Las Vegas next year. Just the flight is so long. Flight is so long. And it's a weird flight because if you take off in the morning here, you land there in like... If you take off really early in the morning in the UK, you land there, I'm pretty sure, quite early in the afternoon US time. But you've just done like an 11-hour flight. It's really confusing. So you've done an 11-hour flight, which kind of tires you out because you don't really rest and you don't really walk around and get exercise. Then you land. It's the early-ish afternoon, like it's Las Vegas. The sun's high in the sky. So you kind of like go to your hotel, decamp, and head out. And then it gets to like I find it gets dark. I don't know, whatever it is, like 7, 8 or something. And then it's 7, 8. But to you it feels like 3 in the morning and you've stayed out like 20 hours. Because that is literally what's happened. So I haven't worked out the ideal way to do it to go to Las Vegas. Because you can't do an overnight flight. I think the ideal way to do Las Vegas, and I've never seen these flights, but would be to take off from the UK at like... Would be take off at the UK at like 10 or something, 10 PM. And basically stay up till like 2 or something on the plane. So do 4 hours. And then sleep for 6 hours. So you actually get some sleep. And then land in Las Vegas really early morning. I don't know when it would be, like 4 AM or something. Go to your hotel and then have a nap or something like that. But that's really difficult because your body's now awake. Because 4 AM in Las Vegas is actually like, I don't know, midday in the UK or something. But you've got to force yourself to have a nap. And then you wake up properly in Las Vegas about midday and you're kind of like ready to go. I think that's the way to do it. I might be going to Shanghai and I need to work out how to do Shanghai. If you take an early afternoon flight to go to Shanghai from UK, you land like you land early morning the next day. I can't. What is it? you basically lose a day. You sound like George Russell. Welcome. Mackie, I live in Michigan, so Vegas, Miami, or Circuit America's ordering my first one. Yeah, the Sphere Zone is quite nice, actually. I think it's general admission there. Nobody wants to visit the USA nowadays. I think plenty of people. I mean, plenty of people are going for the World Cup. Also, this period of time, F1 is in competition with the World Cup. So there will have been marketing people looking at FP3 going, hang on, there's no cars on track. I'm sure there's probably a World Cup match on now. I think F1 needs competition. I think there needs to be another Formula series that competes with F1. I mean, they've tried it in the past. Lando goes fastest. You know, I could see in the future Formula One. I mean, maybe they already do it because, I think you see much less F1 driver. Even though ironically Max has done it in the Nürburgring, I think you see much fewer F1 drivers actually do other racing now. Like Hülkenberg has done it previously. Alonso's done it. Even Lando's done it. It's only because of these breaks we had, and also Max doing it, that maybe it feels like that's normal recently. But if I can imagine Formula 1 say to the drivers, you are not going to drive in any other series because we're in competition with them and we don't want you taking your fan base over to those series. That's going to hurt us. But I think it'd be super cool if these drivers did. Also, from my experience of speaking to racing drivers, that it's just helpful for them driving different types of cars against different drivers. Right, 35 minutes into session. Lando went fastest. Leclerc just a little bit slower. Lindblad went over the line. Third fastest. Welcome, Janus. So yeah, Shanghai. And Shanghai is, it depends whether you go on the Chinese airlines or you go on non-Chinese airlines where you fly over. But I think that's like a 12-hour flight. Thing is, because I don't fly anything higher than economy, it's impossible to get any decent sleep. The only decent sleep I can get is often coming back from the US. Because I actually like flying back from the US. Coming back from China is going to be, well, at least I'll be gaining time again. I'm not sure. Not sure how to do it. Verstappen and Hadjar on the softs. I mean, pretty much everyone on the softs, to be fair, because I just don't think people want to be on these hards and mediums that much because they want to save them. I doubt they even want to be on the softs that much. I mean, they're not going to be learning that much about race pace on the softs. That's the thing. So I do wonder whether this is a little bit performative. Welcome, Stash. Looks like McLaren's are back to business. Well, let's see. I'm not sure how representative this is going to be, to be honest. Chara, I wonder with current weather conditions, are certain compounds better suited over others? But I imagine the hard tyre is going to be a great tyre here. A lot of people's lap times being deleted. Gasly just deleted. The thing about this Gasly's podium situation, right? It's a bit like VAR in football. Leaving aside actually what happened there with Gasly, the fact that a race result can be overturned 5 days after the race with new evidence is quite, in a way, is actually quite worrying because I've been to race control at Monaco, actually. I don't know why I didn't make a video on this. I've been to race control at Monaco. I've seen all the banks of monitors and the people working there. Like, there's only so many eyes that they can have, and yes, they'll probably use AI and stuff, but they'll need to have people like in that chain. There's so much more data is recorded, and camera angles and fan camera angles and all this kind of stuff. What's the chance a circuit like, let's say, Qatar or somewhere that's really marginal on track limits, what's the chance that after the race a team can conclusively go and say that guy in P3, they crossed the white line 2 more times in the race after they were on a final warning? That should have been a 5-second penalty. And then does that driver then get a 5-second penalty and get bumped off the podium days after the race? Because you have up to 96 hours to submit an appeal, and then it's going to take some time to actually come to decisions. Mercedes go fastest. So I actually find like the fact that it can be changed quite worrying. I mean, obviously, you know, it would have sucked for Gasly, but ironically, I think the best thing as a sporting spectacle, would be that the F1 acknowledges that they made mistakes, and that next time that mistake isn't going to happen. I mean, it's not like in football. I mean, it's a bit like what happened in the African Cup of Nations, actually, that they changed the trophy like a few months after. But it's a bit like in football. Let's say there's a penalty shootout, and you know, the winning team scores the last penalty and they win the trophy and there's all that stuff. And then like 3 hours later, there's a camera angle that shows that the ball didn't go fully over the line and it's conclusive. I think in football it's like, well, sorry, that's just tough, unlucky. Whereas in Formula 1, this is where you have to... How much is it as a traditional sport? Because in a traditional sport, people make mistakes. Referees will make mistakes. Or is it like trying to pretend that everything is perfect all the time? Because I reckon there'll be loads of stuff that's cheating illegal all the time. There'll be cars here that are doing stuff illegal. There'll be all sorts of infractions. But now the teams have massive incentivization to basically dub other teams in on it. So the thing is about Abu Dhabi 2021, right? If you take what happened with Gasly and you apply it to Abu Dhabi 2021, here's what should have happened. So in the penultimate lap, Lewis Hamilton's in the lead and Max Verstappen is physically behind him. Okay? And then the safety car says any certain lap cars alarm themselves and we're going to go racing for the last lap. In hindsight, and Mercedes brought a lawyer to the track, like, and I said at the time, if you bring a lawyer to the track, like a really top one, you have to be procedurally ready for that lawyer to make a big call and that lawyer to tell you in 10 seconds whether that's a go or no go, right? Because they were not going to change anything afterwards. So what I would have done if I was Mercedes, if you want to win at all costs in 2021, and maybe they don't because maybe it's not worth the reputational damage, and maybe people would have actually seen this differently, and therefore the Mercedes brand would have been tarnished forever. A bit like the VW brand's a bit tarnished. But if you're Mercedes and you want to win at all costs, I think what you do is when the cars unlap themselves, you take Valtteri Bottas and you slot Bottas in between Hamilton and Verstappen, right? And then you hope, and you just go, you know, you don't. Bottas doesn't take Verstappen out. The Bottas defends and delays Verstappen enough. Hamilton wins. Bottas will get disqualified, black flags, etc. but the race result will have been Hamilton would have won, Verstappen would have been second. And then you can have all the debate about, was Michael Massey bending the rules? And to be honest, here's the interesting thing. If Mercedes did that, right, and you can imagine the optics a little bit, especially after, like, Michael Schumacher had a reputation and actually did cheat many times. With Damon Hill, at Rascasse at Monaco, like, he did cheat many times. You can imagine there might be a little bit of like it's a German team, you know, cheating again. And then people might have looked at the rule because, oh, actually the race director does have some discretion. And actually everyone did agree that we try and go motor racing on the last lap. And we went, and there was a meeting and all team principals said, we're going to not go behind the safety car on the last lap. And this was the only way you could do it. It was the only way you could do it safely, was to get these lap cars out of the way. And then maybe Lewis would have won that championship, but actually the reputational damage for Mercedes would have been a lot worse. But if you wanted to win at all costs, that's how I would do it. There's probably some other ways you could do it as well. I mean, basically, anything that who's gone off here? Is it one of the Cadillacs? Valtteri Bottas in the gravel. Valtteri Bottas is in the gravel. Where has he done that? He's done it, I think, at 10. Which, he's gone off a long way into the gravel at 10. I don't think I've ever seen anyone beach there. I reckon what could have happened is that he came in for 10, which is now a very different corner than it used to be. I actually think I prefer it how it used to be. But anyway, he came into 10, and maybe he locked the rears and then had no grip and went into the gravel backwards. But Valtteri Bottas has gone a long way into the gravel. Do you think Ferrari will be strong enough in the race? I'm not. This is going to be so tyre dependent. So what's Bottas done? So he was all over the curb on the exit of 9. So he's really pushing it. So he rode the curb at 9. Came into 10. Decelerated. Oh, something must have been broken. Because he turned in for 10 and the car basically didn't turn as much. I think maybe the car did not brake. I tell you what, this is terrible. I think with what happened to Perez in Montreal and what's happened to Bottas now, I ain't buying a Cadillac. I don't want my brakes to be failing. Basically, this is saying that Cadillac can't build a car. So red flag there, I'll have to recover that. Oh no, so it's red flag's over already. They've recovered it. They had a digger out there. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. What the Gasly situation technically means for what if we apply the Gasly situation to Abu Dhabi 2021? Sergio Perez now driving this car, hoping that the brake pedal works. Where would be the worst place to leave the brake pedal? I don't think they brake in turn 3. Turn 4's not a great runoff. I mean, obviously turn 1, but I think there's loads of runoff at turn 1. I mean, I'd say turn 1 actually. Turn 1 is where I wouldn't. I mean, after turn 1, turn 10. It's funny because Bottas turned the car in. Everything looked right on the steering wheel, but the trajectory of the car was just completely wrong. What else could you do in 2021? I mean, basically, what you'd want in 2021 is you'd want Hamilton to finish ahead of Verstappen. And it doesn't matter if there's a disqualification. It doesn't matter if it's black flag. You just want to finish ahead. But then what happens if? And you basically want to sacrifice. But I'm not even sure this works because that it's not two wrongs don't make a right kind of thing. Like, let's say Hamilton. Let's say if Hamilton brake checked Verstappen and they both crashed out, it wouldn't work for Hamilton unless there's a count back lap. But then, let's say it did work on count back, that would not work reputationally because, yeah, it might have been wrong against the rules, so like, oh, some lap cars, all lap cars, whatever, but that's a lesser wrong than crashing into an opponent. I think what the Gadget situation generally shows is that no race result is final now, but that's to be fair, that's always been the case. We saw that in China last year with Ferrari. This one just feels more significant, and it feels like it should affect what you do in the race as well. Like, there was a benefit to not taking penalties in the race and arguing them afterwards. Maybe the FIA is going to go really hard in this future, and like anything that's like vaguely subjective, they're going to be like, no, because I don't want this happening. It's like more cars coming out on track now. The race was meant to end under safety car, so the correct thing to do was to revise the result in the final restart order. Yeah, but it doesn't. I don't think that. I don't agree. Because even though it was meant to, it didn't. So you can't. This is like the Piastri situation. Piastri in Monaco. Piastri's not going to get time added back or something. Like, he physically went over the line. You have to work out. Your starting point has to be, where do the cars physically go over the line? In my opinion. Hamilton is out on circuit, by the way. I mean, you could do something crazy, like if you Toto Wolff, and you could literally do something like, you could leave the garage and walk out onto the start-finish straight and cause a red flag. Like, you could do that, but then where does that get you? Because you'd have a red flag, you'd have a last lap. Actually, whoa, hang on a second. What would happen there? So let's say it's the last. They're going down. You know, they're halfway through the lap, and they get the call saying these lap cars may unlap themselves. And you realize, if you're Mercedes, you realize it's a bit of you feel like it's a bit of a stitch up. Perez asking, what happened to Valtteri? Was it just a mistake? Perez being told nothing should affect us. If Perez gets a brake failure now, that's pretty horrendous. But in 2021, so you're Mercedes, you feel like being stitched up. You've got 20 seconds to do something. This is why I say, if you've got the lawyer, he needs to be needs to be able to give you a definitive yes or no in 10 seconds. But let's say you're Toto, let's say you jump over the pit wall and you stand on the pit straight, and a red flag is thrown. The cars then would go into the pit lane and maybe stack in the pit lane, but they would have all started their last lap at that point. So when the race is resumed, when the race is resumed, even if the safety car led them out of the pits, you'd only have between the safety car line of the last corner and the finish line to actually go racing. Which I think, didn't Michael Schumacher get an overtake done like that in Monaco once? The reason why the Gatti situation, I don't think it affects 2021 that much, is because the Gatti situation shows that if your driver has a penalty, but it's not taken, that penalty can be eradicated into the race. That's kind of like the reminder the Gatti situation gives us. In Hamilton situation in 2021, if he gets a penalty, if he keeps Verstappen behind by getting a penalty, like, you know, he overtakes a safety car early or something, I don't know, like he does something to keep Verstappen behind and gets a penalty, that penalty is still going to stand, like irrespective of the administrative nuances of the safety car, like any and all lap cars. Hamilton's penalty is still going to stand, because the difference between 2021 and the Gatti situation in Monaco is that 2021 was about an administrative interpretation of the rules that was not actually, when you isolate it, was not actually specific to any driver. Obviously in the circumstances it affected one driver, but technically it was independent of any driver. Mercedes are sandbagging again. FIA needs to split engines. They are making some change, aren't they, in 2028 now? And the other thing about Abu Dhabi 2021, whenever I go back to it, is that the whole thing to me is kind of irrelevant, because if Latifi crashes a lap earlier, then there would have been enough time for the lap cars to unlap themselves. Hamilton still wouldn't have boxed, because Verstappen can just do the opposite. Verstappen's like when you play noughts and crosses. He doesn't matter what you do, he's just going to do the other one and he's going to complete it. So if Latifi crashes one lap earlier, if the recovery is a little bit quicker, then it's exactly the same situation, except all lap cars have been able to unlap themselves. So I find the whole thing from a universe consequence point of view, whatever it is, I find it a little bit pointless, actually. Right, 13 minutes to go. Liam Lawson with some dust in his eyes. Now, a difference between Abu Dhabi and Monaco is that in Abu Dhabi, obviously Mercedes did appeal, but people forget Mercedes withdrew that appeal, and I get the feeling that there would have been lots of discussions about that, and part of the reason for Mercedes withdrawing the appeal is because if Mercedes had been successful with that appeal, it would have massively damaged the sport and essentially massively damaged Mercedes, because their benefits from the sport would have been greatly reduced. And I thought with Gasly, I thought Alpine would also withdraw it for similar reasons, but Alpine, you know, maybe a bit more principled and stuck to their guns. And then that begs the question why no one else appealed. Well, hang on, well, no one else. The more interesting learning from the Gatti situation from Monaco, I think, is actually that some of the other drivers shouldn't have taken their 5-second penalties. Now, you can say that George Russell kind of tested that, because George Russell, in effect, didn't take his 5-second penalty. Maybe he was ahead of the curve, and then he got slapped with the drive-through. And here's the really interesting thing. This is the most interesting thing about the Gatti situation, is that what would have happened if George Russell hadn't taken his drive-through right at the end of the race? Because George Russell was in the points. So, if George Russell hadn't taken his drive-through, would the drive-through penalty have still been applied at the end of the race, converted, because it's actually a separate penalty to the speeding penalty that was possibly wrongly applied to George Russell? That's very interesting. If Lewis would have won the 8, do you think he would have got Ambassador Role 2 and staying? I'm not sure it would have made too much difference. You have to remember, Lewis was very magnanimous about that whole thing, both at the time and immediately after. And to this day, like to this day, you know, and I think that is partly why he's able to compete at this level, because if he was, don't say like petty, but if he was obsessed about the past, you know, he has to be free of all of that to drive. 10 minutes ago, everyone. So, while we've been chatting, it is still Mercedes at the top, and it is Russell who's just pipping Kimi Antonelli. It's interesting that Mercedes are sponsored by both Microsoft and Meta AI. Shows how big F1's become. I mean, Microsoft sponsored Renault for a long time. And Microsoft Dynamics, whatever that was. Wow, quick lap from Russell. Very quick lap from Russell, 15.6 there. And Piastri pipped Antonelli as well. Let's keep it out for Norris also. $15.9 for Norris. So the McLaren's not looking too bad. Verstappen looks way off. But yeah, let me know if you've got any thoughts in the chat on what we just talked about, or what I talked about. Dead for Lindblad. See what Hamilton does here in the Ferrari. Beat Leclerc? Yeah, he does. 16.3 for Hamilton. But I reckon Antonelli's got a lot of pace in reserve there. Maybe starting a lap now, I'm not sure. Hammer time. Hammer time confirmed. Today's going to be an interesting day for Mon because you've got Le Mans. You'll have football in the USA. Going up against a battered and bruised Formula 1. I wonder if we'll look back in a few years at Formula 1 and say Formula 1 had so much, they had everything they needed, and they just tried to extract too much from the fans. They made bad decisions about the formula to appease road car manufacturers, when actually the strength has been teams like Red Bull, who are not a road car manufacturer. Kimi not too happy with Lance Stroll, I think. Oh, and then blocked him afterwards. Bit naughty from Kimi, actually. What I find impressive is that when drivers are behind other cars, they can know which driver it is in that car, even though they can't see the helmet. I don't know if that's because it shows on their wheel, This car ahead. Kimi came in after that. George from that next year's contract depends on it. Well, I just wonder, like, this season, I know George is third in a 2-horse race, but you know, if George gets some good results, are we going to have a similar season to last season between the two drivers? I just think it's not a great, it's never a great season. Like, can we be honest that last season wasn't a great season? I think, as we said at many points during it, when your battle is between two drivers in the same car, unless it's like Prost and Senna, it's never as exciting as having two or more different manufacturers up there. So I'm not that excited for a Russell versus Kimi battle all the way through the season, to be honest. I've seen that story like a million times. Like, either the new driver's going to get it, you know, or the experienced driver's going to get it. Great. Might sound very cynical, but I'd love to see you know, Formula 1 seasons where other different teams are doing stuff really differently, and you don't know who's going to win.
Keep your head down.
Ferrari at the moment just 3/10 off with Leclerc. Yeah, Anthony instant noted for driving erratically. I think he could get a penalty there. So he wasn't too happy with Lance Stroll, but he went ahead of Lance Stroll, turn 2, and just basically braked in front of him. I think it's a little bit naughty from Kimi. I think a little bit naughty. Had to have a moment. Is it worth buying all the DLCs at LMU? Are they on sale at the moment with Le Mans? I mean, even I don't have all the DLCs. I would say, I mean, I like driving Silverstone, so that ELMS one, Catalunya as well. I'm not a massive fan, I've got to be honest. I'm not a massive fan of how in 3 years' time there's going to be probably hundreds of dollars of DLC to go with LMU. So we're on that road, no one really talks about it, but it's going to be a situation where the base game is going to be so bare, and it's going to not be it's not like discriminatory, but it's going to be intimidating for people, and people are going to feel like, oh, they don't have the full experience. Can't do all the races, etc. I mean, if I was LMU, what I would do, because they're very good at doing the new liveries and cars and stuff like that. What I would do if I was LMU is I'd say, oh, this is very controversial. I'd say there might be a season DLC pack every season for the latest cars, but at the end of the WC season, we make all that content available for free in the base game, for free, that people have already paid their $30 for, etc. Did it help to finish his career at Ferrari? let's drill it down into that. Either he's going to have a good season Ferrari here or a bad season. If he has a good season, it's either going to be like, I'll finish on that, or hey, the stuff I'm developing for next year can be even better. I mean, I feel like Hamilton could drive in Formula 1 for quite a long time. Until he becomes like the grizzled back marker. Right, just 1 minute to go. So, not sure we've learned too much here, other than Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari seem to be there or thereabouts. Don't think we can quite put Verstappen in there. Hamilton wants V8s. So we will see for qualifying. I'm not sure when qualifying is, actually. But I will schedule that stream. I think it might be at 3. In which case we go live at 2:20 or something, 2:02. Something like that. But yeah, look, seems like tyres are going to be at a premium, so no one wants to use their mediums and hards. Maybe even soft tyres will come into play for qualifying. We'll see at the end. But I'm going to wrap it up there and get ready for qualifying later. That's a bit of bet on it now. I would say I'm going to go George Russell. I'm going to use that FP3 knowledge we have and say George Russell to take the pole position. And even though I kind of said I've seen this battle many times before, it will be interesting to see George back in ascendancy and how Kimi handles that. Because Kimi's going to... It's a long season to go. Kimi's going to have his moments, his issues, his tough times as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. FP3 will be back for qualifying in, I think, a couple of hours. So have a good lunch, and I'll see you then.